Hey, what's up guys? Today we'll be discussing how to pick the correct type of boxing headgear. So stay tuned. Hey, what's up guys? Carlo here. Today I'll be discussing how to choose the correct style of headgear for boxing. Now keep in mind that this is not a review video, so I won't be going into the specifics of the brand and the model of each one of these headgears. I have 4 of them here with me today, which I believe are probably the most popular style of headgears you would find at most boxing gyms. Starting on my right, I have the open face, completely open in the front headgear from Ringside. Next to that, I have the open face with minimal cheek protectors from Ringside. After that, I have the open face with large raised cheek protectors from Phenom, also known as the Japanese winning inspired headgear. And lastly, I have the face saver, also known as the nose bar headgear from Hit and Move. And before you guys ask, I know it's coming. Yes, I will be doing a review on this face saver here in the next couple of weeks. Now, each one of these headgears poses specific pros and cons. And to me, that's largely what's going to determine what is the correct style for you. There's a couple things to consider. One is going to be your experience level. Are you someone that's just starting off? This is going to be your first time sparring. Or are you an amateur that has a couple of fights that spars 1 to twice a week? Are you a high level amateur that's competing at the national level? Or are you a pro? So those are things to consider. The other thing I consider is your style, your boxing style. To me, your style kind of goes hand in hand with your headgear because it gives you advantages and disadvantages. Are you a offensive minded or defensive minded fighter? Are you a pressure fighter? Are you a boxer puncher? Are you a counter puncher? Are you somebody that throws a ton of punches each round and continues to come forward? And one thing to keep in mind with that is everybody's physical limitations are different. Some people are more athletic. They can move their upper torso and they're better with their footwork. So they're able to kind of bob and weave and slip punches a lot easier and kind of get through that and working their defenses where some people can't. And what they end up relying on is more their hands and blocking and kind of coming forward and catching and parrying shots. So those are all things to kind of take into consideration with the headgear. And then lastly is kind of a gray area. I call this kind of an obscure one. What is your purpose? And by that I mean is a good example of that would be, what's your end goal? Are you somebody that's sparring maybe once a week because you're doing it recreationally? Say, for example, you're a white collar worker, on Monday morning you wear a suit. The last thing you can come to work with is a black eye or a cut on your orbital bone. So those are the things to kind of take into consideration when you're looking at this headgear as well. So let's go ahead and start off with the open face headgear and kind of go over the specifics with the open face headgear. Now, starting off with the open face headgear, this is probably the most popular when it comes to the amateurs. You're going to see the USA boxing team to use this when they're training. I believe that they're currently sponsored by Sting, who makes their amateur boxing equipment. Ringside, like I have here, Title Boxing also makes their version of an amateur open face style headgear. This one actually has the USA boxing headgear official patch right there stitched onto it with some sizing and whatnot. But they all pretty much have to fall under that same spec and category in order for them to get certified for USA Boxing. To me, the biggest advantage of this headgear is going to be the most obvious one, which is also probably its biggest drawback, is going to be the fact that you have full vision in front when you wear this. You have about an inch and a half of padding on the areas right here on the front of your forehead, on the temples, on the side of your head, with your ears, and on the back of your head as well. And it's tapered on the back so you have full rotation of your neck so you can move your head whatever way you want to move it. But you have complete vision. So my vision is not impaired whatsoever. I have great horizontal vision, left to right, and vertical vision up and down. I can see pretty much all punches coming, all my straight jabs, hooks, and uppercuts you can see with this headgear. Now again, obviously the biggest con to that is that you can get hit. You can get hit the most with this. So you have no protection in the front. So if a punch lands hard enough, you can get a broken nose. If you have a big nose like me, you run the risk of that. Your cheeks are exposed and so is your chin. You do have a chin strap at the very bottom obviously like all headgears do, which keeps the headgear attached to your head, but your chin is exposed, your nose is exposed, and a little bit of your cheekbone. Now, depending on the angle that your head hits, if you end up clashing heads with somebody, there is the possibility that you can get, you can clash heads and you can cut underneath your cheek right here. So those are things to keep in mind, but this offers the best visibility. So oftentimes you'll find fighters and the amateurs or slick fighters that love using this type of headgear because it gives them the protection right here around the head when it comes to the padding, but it gives them full visibility. So slick fighters that like to move their head a lot, use head movement, use bend at the waist, and just they can do all of that and they don't feel restricted. The other thing is that these headgears generally are more compact. There's not much to them, right? And all you have is just the foam around the crown of your head, on the side and the back. So in terms of the actual material that's used, there's just not a ton on your head. You'll notice that a lot of fighters from back decades ago, you know, Mike Tyson, even before him, they used to wear headgears that were similar like this, where it was just a headgear over the head, but their face was completely exposed. And again, because they wanted that full visibility. So that's really the pros and cons of the open face style headgear. All right, next up is going to be the open face with minimal cheek protector headgear. This is pretty much going to be identical to the open face one without cheek protectors in terms of dimensions and padding and securement style. So you do have that lace closure on the crown of the headgear, and both have the Velcro closure with the tapered neck on the back. The main difference is going to be obviously the cheek protectors on this one compared to the other one. Same amount of thickness of padding, about an inch and a half of padding. And yes, this one is also approved by USA Boxing. So this can be used as an alternative to a sanctioned USA Boxing amateur bout. Now, putting the headgear on, it pretty much feels identical to the open face one from ringside as well. You do have your chin strap to put on that keeps the headgear secured to your head. Now, this one's pretty obvious, but the pro to this headgear is that you still have pretty good visibility and you have these cheek protectors. All right, so you're essentially giving yourself a little bit more protection over your cheeks. So if you do clash heads, you don't end up doing any damage to your cheekbones right here on either side. And the cheek protectors also give you a little bit of protection for punches. Obviously, if a punch comes straight into your nose, you're still going to get hurt. You can see that my nose is still exposed. You can still make contact with that. But if a punch kind of comes in at this angle, you know, this cheek protector does a decent job of protecting your nose as well. It's not full on protected. It's not guaranteed to protect your nose because it still is exposed, but it gives you a little sliver of protection. You also notice that my chin is exposed as well. So you are still susceptible to getting hit with an uppercut on your chin if it comes upwards. The vision on this is not going to be as good as the open face headgear, but it is pretty good compared to the others. I still have pretty good peripheral side to side horizontal vision. Vertical vision looking up is still pretty solid. My downward vision is a little impaired because of these cheeks, not by much, and I still have my vision right here in the middle where my nose is at. So to me, this is going to be kind of a good compromise between a cheek protector and a completely open face headgear, because you're kind of getting the best of both worlds with this headgear. So that is where this open face with minimal cheek protector style headgear comes in. Next up is going to be the open face cheek protector style headgear with large cheeks. This is going to be essentially your Japanese winning inspired headgear that many brands make, like Phenom, that kind of emulate that winning style FG 2900 headgear. Similar to the others, you do have about an inch and a half padding throughout the entire headgear when it comes to the front forehead, temple area, down to the cheeks. You also have padding on the back of the head, as well as ear donuts, ear padding at about an inch in thickness that goes around your ears, with a little bit of padding right here on the crossbar. You'll also notice that these type of headgears typically have lace-up closures on both the crown as well as on the rear for adjustment. I personally prefer lace because I feel like it gives a more customized and solid fit compared to Velcro closure, which is better for ease of use, meaning that it's easier to put on and take off the Velcro closure with these style of headgears. Both have a tapered neck at the bottom. The other thing with this style of headgear is typically they come with a quick clip chin strap system. So you just adjust that. You do have the male end, and then you have the female end of the quick click clip system, excuse me. So once you have it fitted to your head specifically, you can just clip it on. Where the other headgears, like the one from Ringside that I showed you guys a moment ago, the open face red one I have, as well as this one, uses a leather buckle with a metal buckle strap or buckle right there. So very similar to like a belt buckle, which takes a little bit longer because you have to find the hole when you put it in and then adjust it. So it does take a little bit longer, but those are the key differences, that Velcro on the back as well as that chin strap uses that metal buckle. Now, pros and cons with this headgear. Sliding it on, this one's already fitted to my head, so it's exactly the dimensions of my head. The top lace is already adjusted. The rear lace is already adjusted. And all I have to do now is put on the chin strap, which is adjusted as well. And it just clicks into place. So now I'm done putting this on my head, and it's adjusted to my dimensions. Now, the pros of this headgear is that this is probably the best you're gonna get in terms of impact resistance towards the front of your face before going to a full-blown face saver with the bar on the front of your head. And the reason for that is you have these raised cheek protectors. So it's raised, you can see that it's thicker at the very tips right here. These little wings right here is essentially giving you a little bit more depth. If you have a large nose like me, it sticks out. It's basically giving you a little bit more depth so that when you do take a straight punch to your face, it either blocks it completely or reduces the amount that it comes in and pushes into your face, into your nose. So it gives you definitely better protection compared to the other previous headgears to the impact without going with a full-blown face saver. The other thing is that you still have a little bit of peripheral vision vertically looking downwards because you still have this opening right here. Now, the drawback with this headgear, again, is obvious, is that your peripheral vision is now going to be slowly taken away. It's worse than the other two. So horizontally, side to side, it's pretty good. Looking up is pretty good, but looking down is definitely more impaired than before. Because of the larger cheek protectors and the thickness of them, I can't see as well looking downwards. So to me, this headgear is very popular with high-level amateurs and especially pro fighters, because oftentimes they have so much experience in the ring fighting that they have a natural feel of timing and where the punches are coming from, that they can rely on their instincts more with their defense to understand where a jab, a straight, a hook, or an uppercut's coming from without actually having to see it. Sometimes they might be in close in the clinch or breaking off, and they understand the positioning of where their opponent's shoulders are at, their forearms and their hands are at, and even their feet. That if opponent throws a punch, they know where to go without even seeing them. So they don't really have to rely on their vision as much. I'm not saying they don't have to rely on their vision. They don't just have to rely on it as much as somebody that has less experience, even like myself. I don't have that level of experience like they do to see those shots as well. So they can sacrifice that and give themselves a little bit more protection on the front and have a little bit of sliver of vision coming down vertically right here, but give yourself more protection on the front so you can take more shots. The other big thing with that is at the pro level, when this is now their profession, right? Now they're pro. This is where they're making their income from, their compensation. This is how they pay to put a roof over their head. When they're sparring and they're getting ready for a fight, they want to be protected get the most protection as possible in terms of the last thing they want is to get injured before a fight, 2 to 3 weeks before a fight, and now they have to withdraw from the fight because they had a huge gash underneath their eye or some type of injury around their face or something happened because they were sparring and they end up getting injured. So oftentimes you'll see them use this or the nose bar or face saver headgear because they can still spar properly and get their technique down and feel it out and spar hard, but they don't have to rely so much on all that vision because they're so experienced. So that's, to me, or an advantage of having this headgear comes in is for like the high level guys and even the pros because of the trade-off you're getting with the protection on the front with the cheek protectors and kind of the lack of vision is a little bit of a trade-off. So that's where I think that this style of headgear excels. And the final headgear is going to be the face saver, also known as the nose bar headgear. This one is from Hit Move. They're all relatively similar in design with a lightweight aluminum or steel frame that is installed in the front portion of the headgear. They all have foam cushioning that surrounds the front portion, usually 1 inch to 1.5 inches on the forehead, temple area, the side of the cheeks, as well as some cushioning that is built around the actual bar itself. On the rear of the headgear, you have cushioning as well for protection, as well as ear donuts typically. This one has about 1-inch thick donuts with a crossbar. This one also has a lace-up closure for the crown as well as a lace closure for the rear, which I prefer over Velcro, which I mentioned earlier, just for fit and custom feel. Makes it feel more snug and to me conforms around your head a little bit better than Velcro does. And this one also incorporates the quick clip system like I showed you with the Phenom Japanese style headgear at the bottom of the chin. Again, I prefer this over your traditional metal buckle because it's more easier to put on once you have it adjusted to your head. Now, sliding this face saver on, slides over the top of your head. Kind of have to move your hair out of the way. And the good thing about this headgear, because it's only used by me, is one, I already adjusted it to the size of my head, and two, the quick clip is already adjusted to my chin as well. So in terms of the depth of my head going in, I have the chin strap already adjusted to it. The other important thing about face savers is going to be that the frame that's built in here is adjustable, meaning that if you have any pressure points around your temple, your forehead, your cheeks, your chin, on the back of your head, really anywhere, you can actually stretch out. You can kind of pull apart the frame, or you can kind of push it in and compress it based on how it feels. So everyone's head shape is different, so you can adjust that based on how it feels to your comfort level. Now, when it comes to face savers, the bar technically is supposed to be sitting at somewhat of an angle, not a direct 45-degree angle, but there's kind of a misconception. But the way face savers are typically supposed to sit is at an angle. So when you're looking at it, it does look like the bar is in front of your nose because it is, right? But when you take a punch to the bar, what happens is the bar actually drops down at an angle and pushes in underneath your nose. So whenever it actually slams into your nose, that's the way it's designed, is that it's designed to look like it's in front of your nose, but when you get hit, it actually drops below your nose and in front of your mouth. So it actually never makes contact with your nose. If it does, then the actual placement of the headgear is incorrect, and perhaps the size of the headgear might be wrong. And then just the bar itself needs to be adjusted. But when you do take a punch to your head, what happens is that bar is supposed to drop below your nose. Now, obviously, the biggest advantage of a face saver is going to be the protection level. Out of the 4 headgears I've shown you today, this is going to be the most protective in terms of taking a punch. So if a punch comes in, there's no way a punch should be able to get inside this opening right here with gloves on. If you're generally speaking using like 16-ounce gloves in sparring, there's no way that glove is going to actually be able to enter this opening right here. Now, I can do it obviously with my bare hand because my hand itself is small enough to go through that opening, but with gloves on, there should be no way for that to go through. So for those of you that need something where you can't get any kind of marks or blemishes, maybe you work in a profession where you can't show up with black eyes and cuts under your eyes and just any type of damage done to your face, then the face saver is definitely probably the way to go. And then my second option after that would probably be like a raised cheek protector style headgear like this Phenom, to where it's probably the next best thing in terms of protecting your nose and the area around your orbital bone, your cheeks, and just this whole front area of your face. Now, the big drawback compared to the other 3 is going to be your visibility, your vision. Now, my peripheral with this headgear is really good. Obviously, every face saver is different based on the size of the opening around your eyes. So generally speaking, your horizontal vision is typically pretty decent. It's usually the vertical vision, the up-down, that's impaired, particularly the vision below, right? Because you have this big bar that's going below here. So what that really impairs with your vision is going to be punches coming upwards, uppercuts, right? Or if your opponent is kind of in a crouched position below you, elevation-wise, has dropped their hips or kind of lowered their knees down to kind of shoot an uppercut or a punch, you know, your head might be sunk down, but maybe it's not. Maybe you're in a different position. You might not see the shot coming. The other big thing with face savers that I'm not a big fan of is this bar essentially acts almost as a lifting point. So say, for example, your opponent, you know, hits you with a 1-2 uppercut. If he doesn't even hit you on the chin, if he just hits you right here, he can essentially lift your head up by hitting the bar. And matter of fact, there's a lot of, you know, coaches and trainers that when they're training in the gym and they have somebody wearing one of these, they'll tell their boxer, like, hey, aim for that uppercut and try to lift his head. So if he doesn't even catch his chin, you want to catch him underneath the chin. That's the ideal point, boom, to catch him under the chin. But if you don't, you might get lucky and even catch that bar, and with that bar, the bar will lift his head up, and then the follow-up shot with the cross, right? So the bar almost acts as like a weapon against yourself. Even though it's there to protect you, it almost acts like a benefit for your opponent, because they can essentially lift your head by punching at the bar and lifting your head up. So you have to keep that in mind as well. But from a design standpoint, that's what this bar is meant to do, so you don't get any impact on your face. Now, to me, the face saver, I find and I've seen, is more popular with the pros and the people that just can't get any contact to your face. And the reason I say pros, like Manny Pacquiao, you see a lot of pros use this, particularly in their training camps, is because they have a big fight coming up and there's a lot of money on the line. Their compensation, their livelihood, the money they're about to make, 20 million, 30, 40, 50, 5, whatever it may be, millions of dollars, just, you know, obviously a large sum amount of money they've worked hard for is on the line. So the last thing they want to encounter during their training camp is sustain an injury that impacts their face, their vision, their just something that causes damage to where it jeopardizes their fight, right? So that's the reason why I feel like a lot of the pros will use a face saver, is because it minimizes the possibility of something happening to their face, damaging their face. And pros are much more seasoned than, you know, regular amateur boxers or people that are just sparring, guys that don't have the same level of experience like myself. They have a much better feel for the ring. They have a much better feel for positioning with footwork, where their hands are located. So even though they're sparring and they don't have the same visibility that they would with an open face headgear, you know, like this one from ringside, because they have this big bar, they're so seasoned and they're so used to fighting and sparring that even if they don't have that extra visibility, they still know where the punches are coming from, and they have the ability to tell and kind of predict how the punches are being thrown. So they might not even have to see it coming. They can just already know where it's coming from, and then they can adjust on the fly. And having that face bar is just extra insurance that they get, so they don't have to worry about sustaining damage during sparring, during their training camp. And that, to me, is really the big benefit of having this compared to an open face headgear. And again, to the people that just can't take any damage to their face because, well, whatever reason it may be, work, maybe they had a broken nose and they just got a surgery and they want to get back in the gym again and slowly get back to sparring. So them and their partner are just doing like 50%, you know, tapping, sparring, moving around. But they wear the face saver because they just want to be sure that they don't re-aggravate that injury. Orbital bone injuries, any kind of facial bone injury, this will be good to kind of give them that extra security that they might not get otherwise with the other types of headgear. So to me, that's where the headgear of this style really comes into benefit. Another important thing not to forget is to make sure you guys get the correct size headgear. That's going to be vital and equally as important as the style of headgear to making sure that it fits on your head and protects you properly. When you go onto the website or whatever brand headgear you end up getting, they should have a sizing chart on the website. When you click on it, it'll show you what size to get based on the circumference of your head. All you have to do is get a measuring tape and measure around the circumference around your head, and from there that'll determine what is the correct size for you. Keep in mind, I would not get your headgear based on weight. I think there's kind of a misconception there where people are like, well, I'm a heavyweight, so I'll get the XL because I'm a heavyweight, or, you know, I'm at, you know, 122 or I'm 135, I'll get small or medium. It doesn't go by weight, it goes by the size of your head. I've seen smaller people that have big heads, and I've seen big 6'2" dudes that have smaller heads. So definitely go by the sizing chart and measure your head. That's the correct way to get the most accurate size for your headgear. So in conclusion, out of the 4 style of headgears I showed you today, my personal favorite is going to be the open face style with the smaller style cheek protectors. To me, this is a headgear that has a perfect blend of visibility and protection. Typically, this style is usually more lightweight and has a slimmer profile. And visibility wise, when it comes to your peripheral vision, you can really see everything in front of you. Horizontally, vertically, you can see pretty well. You still have this opening here. And you also have these cheek protectors that do an ample job of protecting your cheeks and your orbital bone. Now, is it going to be as protective as, say, the ones right here with the raised cheek protectors? No, it's not going to. You can still get punched in the nose. But that's where your defense comes in, right? That's where you move your head. That's where you use your defensive movement, your fundamentals. And to me, that forces you to really rely on your fundamental defense rather than just walking right in with, taking shots and relying on like a face saver to save you, basically, right? So I feel like this keeps you a little bit more true and honest as you're working your defense and moving your head when you're setting up your offense. And again, your visibility is much better. You can see all the shots coming through. There's not one shot that I can't see when I'm using this. Obviously, the complete open face is the way to go, but then you lose a little bit of the cheek protector. To me, face sabers are my least favorite because it's just overkill and I can't see uppercuts or other punches coming in. So in the end, I think, in my opinion, this is my favorite style of headgear to use. It really does everything well. And I feel like when it comes to preserving your head, that's ultimately the end goal, right? Is longevity and staying healthy, is not getting hit, right? You don't want to absorb punishment that you don't need to. And I feel like your vision is the precursor to that, meaning that being able to see in front of you what's happening and being able to evade that attack is what's ultimately going to give you that longevity, not taking punishment, unnecessary punishment. So to me, this is definitely my favorite style. So if you guys have any questions or comments, you guys know what to do, put them down below. I'll put the link in the description box, or you can find these style of headgear down in the description box. I have a couple of brands I'll be dropping down there, and all great brands, different variety, different styles and colorways, and they all offer different sizes. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.